What's up everyone, welcome to a new episode. In this one we're gonna learn how to spawn towers inside the tile set that we have built in our level. First of all, we can select a tower and spawn it. Select another tower and spawn it. See, etc. Let's jump into it. So before we begin implementing stuff, let's go through the steps that we need to do. First of all, we need to select a tower, and which I mean a character here. And the next thing is we need to spawn it inside the screen. Then it should be spawned in the, let's say, the spawn points for towers. I would say it's these points here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then all these rows. So we need to select the tower, point toward the place, click on it, and then spawn that tower in that place. So it will occupy that place. And let's start with the first step. First step is selecting the tower. So we have our UI here, right? And the UI has those tower with the button selection. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we can't spawn any towers unless we click on a tower. And again, the spawning can be either drag and drop or select and click. I'm gonna go with a simple approach, which is you select something and then you click it here somewhere else. And for that we need to have an indication of like it's selected. But let's see if we can apply the drag and drop, because it won't be that difficult. Let's see. First of all, we've got the tower 1 and tower 2. For these things, I would really suggest if we use button, but also I suggest using events. Events has more event trigger. It has more control. For example, I want to make it, let's say, when I enter the mouse, exit the mouse. You also have that one in button, but it's fixed on color of sprite. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have something called here click. Let's go with click. Click means you went through the whole procedure of the click, like mouse down, mouse up. So I'm gonna go with click. And when I click this one, I want to select this tower. And as far as I can see, that we need to create. Actually, we have a script called spawner. Let's add it to the scripts game object. Let's put it on top. Put the spawner here. Here we go. So actually, spawner. Yep, that's it. So we got these two towers, right? We need to have two towers in here. It's tower 1 and tower 2. But that's the wrong reference. But what I'm saying is we can use these at the moment, because later on we're gonna put here prefabs, and prefabs are gonna be including all the mechanics. Shooting, getting hit, all this stuff. But for now, I'm gonna use these sprites because they're basically just images. Honestly, you know what? I'm gonna prefabricate them. I only have, actually here, I already did this before, because I don't wanna drag and drop the same button mechanics. So let's take tower 1 and tower 2. That's simple. First of all, let's open the script. Now we have the spawn ID. This is the spawn ID which we created last time, as it indicates which tower are we selecting. So let's go. Let's create a script to select the tower. Public void select tower, and let's pass an ID. So this ID is basically the indicator of which tower should we select. By default, if this is -1, that means we are selecting no towers, so we can't spawn on the floor. So let's go ahead and spawn ID equals ID. Simple as this. As soon as we do this, we go make another script, public void deselect tower, and what this does is it resets the spawner to -1. Okay, let's give it a test. Now it load. Okay, so we've got this event trigger here. Let's drag and drop this spawner and go select tower. this is should be 0. And let's just copy this, delete this one here, and paste this one. But for this tower, we need to select number 1. And we can see this. Let me show you doing runtime. So as soon as I click on, first of all, the tower, the ID is private. So what we can do is we can enable a debug, and we can see it in here. So if I click on this one, it becomes 0, 1, 0, 1. You can see it. So first step is done. Next step is to indicate where to spawn. So we have already got our tile maps, right? The first tile map is the floor, which is the environment. You know, I would say an interactable environment, the static environment. And the second thing is the interactable environment, which is going to be the spawn points. These are the points where we can spawn our towers, right? And we've enabled the tile map collider, and you'll see why. So the first thing is we need to detect whenever we click on each tile. For example, if I click anywhere in this tile, it should spawn inside this tile, right? For that, we need to use the tile map, the spawn points tile map, this object. Okay, let's go here. Let's make a reference. Spawn points tile map, right? So public tile map. So for this, you have to actually using Unity tile maps. So we have the tile map, spawn tile map. All right. So it's similar to raycasting, but not exactly as it is. But what we can do is, first of all, let's make void update, because we will use it, and then we'll create our selecting script, and let's call it select. No, actually, I don't want to go select. So we're gonna spawn. Yeah, let's call it detect spawn point. All right. We can change it later, but it's fine. So we need to call this every script, every frame. But as we discussed before, if this spawn ID is -1, means we're not selecting anything, we can't spawn. So we can either go and create if spawn ID equals, or actually doesn't equals -1. We can call this, but I'd like to make it more, decoupled, nicer. So we make a boolean method with a boolean return can spawn, and what it does is if spawn ID equals -1, we return false, else return true. With this, we can just call this method, and this should work good enough. So the first thing we need to do here is get the world space position of the mouse. Okay, and next thing is we need to get the position of the cell in that tile map. So those elements, they're called cells. So we're gonna take these positions, but tile maps, they give you the integer position, which means it gives you, for example, if this is a tile, it gives you the bottom left coordinates. So we need get the center position of the cell, check if the cell is eligible. Oh, and actually check if we can spawn in that cell, collider, which we talked about before. If yes, spawn and disable the collider. If no, well, for now we do nothing. Okay, so this is gonna be the process here. First of all, let's start with getting the position. let's go var. Let's call it here. I'm gonna call it mouse position equals, and it's quite common. You should take the main camera, and then there's a method called screen to world, and you pass the input that mouse position. That's it. But again, we need, actually I forgot to add something here. Detect when mouse is clicked. It also works with touch. First touch clicked. So we're gonna go with if input that get mouse button down, and we get the first button. So with this clicked in here, we can put all these things inside. So we can't do anything unless we click a mouse, because if we keep calling this, it's gonna, cause a lot of RAM usage. So we got the mouse position. Now we need to get the cell position. And by the way, the mouse position is vector 3, you see? And the cell position, there's something called, so if we see the spawn tile map, it's called spawn tile map dot, if I'm not mistaken, get cell, no, get world, world, oh, yes. That's the one. Converts the cell position into world. Oh, no, wait. Yep, I think it's this one. Local to world. So we get the local to world, so we convert the local position of the cell to the world position. And we should pass something which is going to be the mouse position. Alright? But we need to save this somewhere. Let's call this cell position raw. Okay? Actually, raw is not good. Yeah, let's keep it raw. It's fine. So with this, we get the position of the cell. Debug log cell position raw. Before we go ahead and keep writing without testing, let's test this stuff out. So first of all, we get the mouse position and the cell, I would say, world position. And right now we're not checking if this cell is, centered or something. So what we need to do is we need to test it, and then we'll add all the logic. And actually I forgot to reference the tile map, so let's do it during runtime, but let's enable it later. So let's see the debug statement here. So if I click on this, oh, am I calling this stuff or no? Spawner, let me just put this here. Input mouse position. Okay, local, yep, nothing is wrong in here. Oh, definitely. So first of all, we have to select the tower. So let's select this first tower, and I should put some indications in here, okay? So if I click on here, I get this position. In a sense, this position is not what we need. We need to have a better positioning, because let's have a testing for this. Let's create a separate sprite, alright? Let's call it anything. Let's give it this, whatever this thing. Let's give something bigger. Okay, this one. Damn, it's too small. Oh no, it's not small. It's just it's not sorting in front of. So here the towers are. Let's go 5 by 5. So it's not the exact position of the cell. Like, it's not exact same, but at least it covers it. So let's have this as a testing sprite. Let's go here. Public sprite render test sprite. So let's do this. That is transform that position equals cell position raw. Okay. So right now you can see that this sprite is positioned. Let's keep it the same position. Let's have 0 0. So that's 0 0 0. And you wonder why it's minus 10. It's because of this whole thing here. So we keep this 0. It goes all the way there, and it's basically you can't see anything in here unless it goes through. But let's keep it as 0 right now, and let's reference it. Test, right? Let's go ahead. If I click here, let's select the tower. Click here. See, the sprite goes off. Why? Because it's spawning right here, and this is not the correct position for it. Right? We should be getting different position. So let's try different values here. Let's get world. Yep, world to cell. We insert the mouse position, and this one it gives converts the world to cell position. Actually, that was the one I should have picked before. So let's select the tower. Click here. So that's it. First of all, I want to make sure that I have these towers highlighted. So let's create a reference for them in here. Let's call these let's call towers prefabs. That's fine. And let's create another list. We call it list of towers UI. Towers UI. So what I mean by this, actually I want to make it images, and for this we need to use the UI. Where is it? Using UI. Here we go. What it needs to be done is set the spawn ID, highlight the tower. Okay. What this does is we go towers UI, and we choose the spawn ID, and then for just the sake of all this, I'm gonna make it look, let's say, more let's choose a color. Okay, let's see how it looks. We can go with alpha, like for example, by default it's like this, actually like this, but only highlights the selected one. But again, I want to choose it, I want to make it look a bit nicer, so let's go with cyan now. You know what? I think I know what to do. So let's keep all of them relatively dark. I think 0.4 would be enough. Yeah, let's keep them all relatively dark, but we light up the selected one. Let's actually just make it 0.5. Okay. So what we do is we go color equals color dot white. But in here, we need to do something here. We need to actually just dim all of them. For each variable, tower in tower UI, we go in t.color equals new color. Yep. Let's go with, as we did, 0.5. 5. Okay. That should do it. Let's set the references and see the tower selection. We're halfway there, actually more than halfway there. So let's set the prefabs first. Tower 1, tower 2. Make sure that the order in here is the same as one in here, because you don't want to have miscalculations in towers. Okay, so we see by default they're dark. So if I click on this one, this becomes bright, bright, bright. Oh, one thing I forgot. Whenever we select something, we have to actually, you know what? I'm gonna do something here. uh, before we what I'm gonna do is whenever we select something, I wanna dim all the stuff. So I can call this deselect towers directly. So what this does, it resets the spawn ID and then all the towers, and then we can reselect the tower. So if we have like 4 or 5 towers in here, we can have this mechanic running like this, you see? So that's good. So as soon as we select a tower, whenever we click on a cell, it spawns the sprite but in the wrong place, right? You can see it's spawning at the bottom left, which is the default vector positioning that gets from here. It's this one here. I'm gonna call it cell position default. Let's remove it. So before we do any kind of spawning, keep this in here, we need to check if this cell is spawnable. But let's get the center position first, which is, if I'm not mistaken, let's call var cell position centered. We go spawn tile map that gets centered. Oh, actually, I think it's this one here. So what you see that it takes the vector integer 3, which is basically this value that we get from the world to cell. So let's pass it cell default, and then we get the center position. So if we spawn the testing sprite, it should come in here if I did all the scripting correct. Let's select the tower. Here we go. So whenever we click on, you can't see the borderlines of the thing. So let me actually show you a small thing in here. Nope, I think it's this one here. So you see, I just want to do this for testing. So let's see if I click here, here, here. These are a bit more visible, but that's not a good place to do. So here we go. So we have spawning in position, alright? So the next thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we can spawn here or here or here, you know? Because as you can see right now, we can spawn anywhere we want, right? Like even here, outside, which is not proper, right? So let's limit all these things. First of all, we need to do is we need to check if it has a collider. And tiles or cells, they have 3 types of colliders: the none, the sprite, and the grid. Right now we're using the sprite. So let's go and check if it has. And the tile map, spawn tile map, has something called get collider type. And this collider type, you have to insert the default position, which is the vector integer, right? So let's insert this one, cell position default, and it gives us, you see, it gives us equals an enum of type collider type. So we want to check if it's sprite. If it's sprite, means it has a collider, and then else it does not have. So what we need to do is, let's remove this. First of all, we need, of course, spawn, right? Spawn this in here. And then we need to disable the collider to make it, you know, let's say spawn the tower, disable the collider. And disabling it is not that difficult. It's just basically the same thing. Spawn tile map that set collider type, alright? And we pass the same value, which is the tile that we pressed on. And we need to set it by inserting another value, which is collider type, the same thing ever. We just make it none, alright? So with this, we can make sure that we disable the collider. But for fun, or like for testing reasons, in here let's go and actually, you know what, I want to do something in here. I want to like test only, enable sprite, test sprite that enable equals true. So first of all, we need this disable sprite test sprite, oops, sprite dot enable equals false, and then enable the collider. This is also for testing. We'll delete it soon enough. So here we go. We pass the same value, but we give it the type sprite. Logically, you wanna destroy the tower, or actually take out the tower or the sprite and enable the spawn with two things, right? Either you disable the tower or destroy the tower by manual demolition, or deleting, or it dies from the enemy. But for now, we need to test it just to see how it works. So by default, this should be hidden like this. Let's play. Let's select the first tower. Let's click here. Click here. Right now we can't see if it's working or not in terms of colliders, but you can see here. Do you see this part? We clicked on this one, so we disabled the collider. So click on this one and disable the collider. So if I click on this one again, nothing's gonna happen. See what happened? The first thing that happens is it disables the sprite and enables the collider. So let's see. This one is disabled. Let's have it set like this. If we click here, you can notice this one is gonna get enabled, this is gonna get disabled. Here we go. Now we have it run again for spawning. The same thing as this one. Now this one is eligible for spawning. I can spawn it. So that's it. You see? Let's delete this. What's happening here? I know. We don't need this part. Neither this one. So what we're gonna do right now is spawn a tower. So void spawn tower, and we give it positioning. Position. And let's go spawn. Oh no, it's actually here. Spawn tower, and we give it self-centered. All right. Let's go make a spawning tower here. It's called tower equals that instantiate, and let's choose the tower that we have using towers prefab spawn ID. First of all, let's just spawn it. It's I want to see no, just keep it. What the white space. All right, let's spawn it in because right now we don't have a container for towers. Let's make one. Spawn towers. Let's reset this and put it in here. And what we need to do, we need to create an object in here, call it vacuum object spawn tower root. Let's make it transform of spawning towers root object. Okay, so what we need to do, instantiate it as part of spawn tower root. And let's go step by step. Let's do this first and then see where the tower spawns. And realistically, whenever you spawn a tower, you need to deselect the towers. Let's rename this. By the way, whenever you rename a method, don't just change the name like this, because it's gonna cause misreference issues. So just right click, rename, and it's gonna rename all the dependencies or like the references. All right, let's save this. Let's go ahead. Let's give it a test. By default, we should not be doing anything in here. So if I click on this guy, if I click here, he's gonna get spawned. Alright, so at least he's spawned, but there's a problem in the spawning, alright? I have no idea why he's not spawned. Oh, because I know why. Because I didn't set the spawn tower. Why did not throw an error? Huh. That's confusing. Click on this guy, put it here. Again. He's zeroed out. Of course he is. So what happens is, we spawn them, right? So let's set the position of the tower. We go tower. That position, the transfer that position equals position, the one that we passed in here. And you need to do one thing. You need to make sure that according to the tile maps, you need to make the tower more or less similar size. So if we go here, you see, I could have made them slightly larger, but you see, like here, I can make him a bit larger. But it all depends on how you want it. So you have to go to the sprite that you want, and then play with the pixel per unit value. Alright, so I chose 30. I chose 40. So let's apply 40 to all of these. That's fine, because it fits the whole thing. So let's go ahead and click on this guy, spawn him here. Like it just goes on. So if we go here, nothing's gonna happen. And I think with this we can have a proper spawning mechanism where we can select a tower and spawn that tower. Right now the tower has no mechanics, but we'll do this in the next episodes. And as it for this episode, we're finished. And I hope you liked this episode. If you did, hit the like and subscribe the button. Also hit the bell to get the latest notifications and updates. Also, you can join our Discord and support me on Patreon. Apart from that, any questions, hit the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.